Well, good morning on our last day of class in here. Scary, isn't it? No? Okay. Everybody hopefully has some fun summer plans. Although I'm a little jealous of Lauren and her ability. She's going to be out on the beach every day this summer, so we'll probably be a little sad about that. But hopefully everybody is going to have a productive, wonderful, fun summer, safe, and if you've got some classes, so there are a couple openings in some summer classes, so one last pitch, if you need one more class, that's a great way to add those. If you haven't registered for fall, I'm going to throw that out here again. Some of those classes may be closing, so you'll want to get that done as quick as possible. So let's talk about our final. I was going to add some more stuff on ChatGPT and things, but I think right now, let's do this. Let's call it. We will look at what kind of things might be on the final. The final will be open on Monday, and it will close on, I believe, Wednesday at midnight. So there's several days to do it. It is all online. It does have a timer that is set to, I believe, 3 hours. So if you've got an accommodation or something happens, it is not set, shouldn't be anyway, set to auto-submit. So if you go over on time, send me an email. Hopefully nobody will run into that, but I know that strange things kind of happen during finals week. So what is our test going to be? Well, it's going to be a combination of different pieces. So it's going to have a couple of true-false questions, things that you should know already, things about like variables, things about loops. The majority of the test, though, is code that you have to try to figure out what it should output. So, or in a couple of cases, you have to write a couple of lines of code to try to get that output. So, we have a lot of resources available. So, I'm assuming everybody has opened and read this entire book. So there actually is this beginning to guide with Python. So there's resources available. This is not a test that you can go study 8 hours in a row for. However, I would say you need to kind of go back and review some of those projects we've done. How do I do a while loop? How do I do an input? What kind of rules about input? So what's kind of weird about any input we do? What do I have to do to that to make it a number that we can use? Remember that everything comes in as an input is a string, and we have to convert those. So those kinds of things, things that are already so stuck in your head, most of the time, I'm going to guess everybody in here is going to do amazing on this as long as you blocked out the time to do it. You have every resource available. So if you want to Google something, Google it. If you want to put it into Python, well, you'll have to really do it, or you should be doing that. And so some of these shouldn't be tough. They really should be, can I apply this a little bit, and how can I do that? So if I look at the modules that you went through, look at all those things you guys have done already. Python basics, problems tools. There are a couple of questions about ethics/security. One of the questions does happen to deal with GPT or ChatGPT or those kinds of tools that are coming out. I think they're going to be amazing for allowing end users who aren't programmers, per se, to create code and to do things. That said, can there be some ethical issues? Yeah. I've also seen where ChatGPT will sometimes just make up stuff. So if you get a piece of code from ChatGPT, make sure it runs. Attribute it. Say, hey, I researched this, I found it, this is the way we could do it. The most common thing I see when people use stuff like ChatGPT, especially in these beginner courses, where they go out to Chegg, or they go out and try to solve it on Stack Overflow or somewhere else, is you're going to use techniques, you're going to use functions, you're going to use modules and things that you don't know anything about. You're just blindly copying this code in and hoping it will work. So please, please, please don't do that. On the other hand, it can be a great resource. So use the tools you have available, but don't misuse the tools you have available. So there are several questions about conditionals. So remember about our if, elif, and else. So there's that model. We didn't introduce the case statements to you, so that shouldn't pop up on there. Nesting and looping. So in other words, can I put a loop inside of a loop inside of a loop? Those kinds of questions. So we looked at some games and different things that you could do very quickly. So if I ask you to create a coin flip program to flip a coin 1,000 times, could you do that very quickly? So that idea, that quick modeling of data. How we get into functions. So what is a function? How do we use a function? I think there may be something about, I'm trying to think in my brain real quick. What is the value of a function? Why would we reuse a function rather than just have all their code in our mainline pieces? So there's a ton of information about this. Here's where I will say that this will be a different test because I have a couple of problems you've never seen anything like. And so I'm going to test those skills. Can you go out and use your brain power and solve those issues? So I believe altogether, looking at it here, I think there are 42 questions, but many of those are multiple choice or others. So it's not designed to take you 3 hours. You have 3 hours that you can utilize if you need it. All right. And finally, there is at least one, maybe more questions about the greatest comedy troupe in all of history. So, Monty Python. So this is actually, there is a connection to Python. So there's a couple of things that when you look at them and you go back, yes, when we look at some of their stuff, it's a little cheesy in the 2020 era. Yes, some of it is not maybe politically correct any longer, but these guys were some pioneers, and if you look at some of their things that they have done, so if I look at members, they are Python members. So there are a ton of different people in here, and some of them went on to do some really, really interesting things. So if I look at like Terry Gilliam, let's see what Terry Gilliam did. And so some of the other things that he has done. So you might look at it, transitional years, what has he done? So just kind of some general knowledge about some of these people that are in there. So I have a couple of questions. Now, you'll obviously be able to research that, but it's kind of an interesting tie-in to this language. So, yes, it's a snake. Yes, it's Monty Python. Over the summer break, you really should go watch a Monty Python movie. The Holy Grail is probably their most famous one. And yes, it's pretty cheesy, but there's some funny bits in it. All right. So, the final is not horrific. You can certainly go back and look at like the PowerPoints. You can scroll through that. But I don't expect you to actually need to study a huge amount if you've been doing these problems as we go through them. So there will be a couple of pieces that will probably challenge you. There are some things like, for example, I'm pretty sure I have a question in there. I'm trying to think if I took it out or not. About what are some other different languages. And I think we did a couple of pieces on that. Why did we pick Python? What's the advantage to Python? And probably some others like what company uses Python? Where can I get a job in Python? If I really like this, can I use Python in a job or a career? If I go on to, I want to look at cybersecurity, is Python a good language to know? can I use it for exploits and different pieces? If I'm a mathematician, is there a relationship or a congruence between R, which is a math program, and Python? So if I learn one, can I learn the other one pretty easily? All right. So that's really it. The final should not be overwhelming. I don't want anybody to stress about it in this class. There is going to be some brain power involved. Block out some time, scan through what you've done, block out that 3 hours just in case. Find a comfortable spot, find a comfortable time, and go to it. Now, you will need, so depending on where you want to take it, I would recommend that to do it correctly, you will need some kind of Python compiler available. So make sure you have, if you go to the library, you may not have that. So make sure wherever you're at, you have a Python compiler available. All right. Any questions? No? No? Lauren, any questions? No? Are we all ready to take this final and get done with this semester? Yes. All right. The weather is finally nice, except for whatever's blowing in the wind out there. So if you have seasonal allergies, well, enjoy those because they're awful fun. I decided to mow last night, and I forgot how horrible that was going to be. So, all right. Any other questions? Comments? Anything for the good of the order? Then I'm going to post this online and push it up. That's a different class.